I'm Madelyne. I'll be presenting some work completed earlier this year, actually, and this timing will become important soon. And I'd like to thank my co-authors, Mona, Anunay, and Jonathan, without whom this work would not have been possible. So this is, in broad strokes, a two-part study, a survey as well as a measurement study on Twitter's blue check program, which was rolled out, well, partially rolled out late last year. Yeah, so if you've spent any time on Twitter between late last year and now, on the site formerly known as Twitter, you likely noticed these hover text boxes that would appear if you moused over a blue check that was appended to a user profile. And we call these quasi-disclaimers here because the degree to which they actually provide any sort of meaningful disclosure varied a good deal from change to change. You have the initial rollout in the US at least, in late October to early November. I guess another notable timestamp was 4/20 this past spring when Musk eliminated all blue legacy checks, or so he said. And shortly after that elimination, actually we had the most explicit disclaimer text, which actually to some extent announced the presence, the requirement for payment and verification of a phone number in order to obtain the blue check under the new regime. Oh, and as of like 2 days ago, they added this disclaimer, this note about data verification through which you could sort of deduce whether or not the check was a legacy check or one that had been bought via the new paid program. Yeah, so this sort of scans with changes that were made by the platform to requirements for verification following Musk's takeover. So this is sort of before then, pre-Musk, the operative buzzwords were authenticity, notability, and evidence of account activity. Authenticity, notably, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that that step required provision of some sort of ID, generally speaking, a government ID, driver's license, et cetera. This is post rollout of the blue check program. Notably missing is that authenticity requirement. The first and foremost requirement is subscription to Blue. And the vacuum that this created was pretty, people took advantage of this vacuum pretty quickly. So one of the most notable examples was the fake Lily tweet, wherein someone created a fake Lily account, a very convincing Lily account, bought a blue check and tweeted that insulin is now free. Unfortunately, that is not the case. The company lost several $1 billion in market cap that day, and then the tweet was, I think, actually taken down like maybe 8 hours after the fact, which is actually a pretty long time. And the deception runs both ways because I'll remind you that in late April, Musk removed all the legacy blue checks. So it then became possible following that date to produce very convincing spoofs minus those checks. Just two examples here. And then of course, whether or not the platform actually followed its own guidelines for assigning blue checks was highly questionable. Shortly after April 20th, Musk himself actually said that he was paying out of pocket for certain notable accounts to retain their blue checks. I think Stephen King was one, also like LeBron, anyways. So in this context, my colleagues and I were wondering, does this very rapid change in verification policies foster some interesting user patterns, either both in perceptions of what verification means online, and also in any substantive changes and who is purchasing verification. We figured that the Twitter changes provided a natural experiment for evaluating these kinds of changes, and so our questions we evaluate with two different approaches. In the first case, the first two research questions addressing expectations and actual verification assurances, we conducted an online survey of users via the Prolific survey platform. In the second half, we conducted a measurement study of tweets. This is all pre-API shutdown. Yeah, so I'll sort of I'll try to interleave discussion of results with some discussion of the actual survey and measurement study methods towards understanding, how people perceive actual versus theoretical verification practices on social media platforms. We designed and deployed a 37-question survey on Prolific. We recruited 300 participants through the platform, and this was demographically representative of the US in terms of race and gender. Whoops. We asked users in a free response setting, what, in general, does a verified badge on an account mean to you? This is not specific to Twitter. We didn't, as much as possible, we avoided Twitter-specific questions just to avoid prompting effects. We asked what steps should be required to verify an account on a social media platform. And under these three platforms' current policies, what requirements do you think an account must satisfy to become verified? So in short, we didn't actually mention, we never said identity verification. We always presented verification as a general term, but it very quickly became evident that users interpreted verification as synonymous with identity verification. So, association with an online persona, with an offline person. And the vast majority of folks, 87%, said, oh, well, obviously, some sort of identity verification is required in order to obtain verification. And this number dropped until we had about 52% in the Twitter case. Notably, you do see that 57% of folks also understood payment to be a requirement for verification, but still a majority at this point, this is in late January, still thought that some sort of identity verification was a requirement for obtaining a blue check, which is not true. Towards understanding what verification actually entails in practice, we showed participants an anonymized version of Twitter Blue's verification criteria, i.e. payment, phone number verification. There's this account age criterion. And then we asked folks, does this look like sufficient verification? And they ranked their responses on a 5-point Likert scale. And then in a free response setting, we asked people, if not sufficient, why do you think insufficient? So about 65% of respondents said that the criteria as presented were insufficient, and this is notably anonymized, so they did not know that this was in fact Twitter. 12% of respondents overall out of the whole sample set explicitly stated that verification should not be for sale. And another 5% stated that confirmation of a phone call or text receipt did not constitute actual verification of identity. A number of those folks actually explicitly stated like, oh, well, that seems like something that'd be very easy to circumvent or spoof. So what does this mean? Seems like there are notable discrepancies between what people think they're getting and what the platform provides as far as verification assurances are concerned. In expectation, most people believe that verified status requires some sort of identity verification, provision of ID. In reality, it seems like verified status under Twitter Blue requires a paid subscription and access to a functioning phone number, which when explicitly raised to respondents, respondents explicitly stated that this seemed insufficient as a form of verification and identity verification. Which leads us to our first conclusion, which is that Twitter blue checks are pretty deceptive. What they mean does not really accord with what survey respondents think they mean. On to our measurement analysis. So we were curious to know actually how the contents and composition of Blue verified accounts changed pre and post rollout of the Blue program. Shortly after the Musk acquisition, but before the API shutdown, we sampled 15 million tweets from roughly 3 million accounts published in October 2022. This was via the academic API. And we rechecked the verified status of those accounts in early this year. And then we inductively coded sample sets of about 200 accounts from a legacy verified set, a Twitter Blue set, and a randomly sampled control set. And accounts in the last group could be verified or unverified. So top-line results. The composition of blue accounts is very different from the composition of legacy verified accounts. If you note the pink bar on the chart, blue accounts are disproportionately personal accounts, small business accounts, compared to legacy blue accounts, which are mostly journalists and government organizations and some large businesses. In general, blue verified accounts are newer. And the drop-off I think you see there is from the, I think like the 30-day account age requirement. Furthermore, blue verified accounts have fewer followers than legacy verified accounts. Again, maybe unsurprising, given that notability and authenticity were not actual requirements for obtaining the blue check. We also noticed that blue accounts were disproportionately likely to be promoting crypto assets and NFTs. They were also more likely to show an inclination towards the US political right, compared to both legacy and control sample sets. They were also more likely to be Musk fan accounts, and were also more likely to tweet very positively about him. Again, maybe unsurprising, but when you see it, you believe it. So just a summary of top-line results. We observe, again, major discrepancies between what people think they're getting and what they're actually getting in the case of Twitter Blue. An expectation, they think, there's still a strong association of verification with identity verification in particular, confirmation of non-spam or non-spoof. In practice, on Twitter at least, verification really is, can you pay? And can you answer a phone / a text? There's also, a bit of a rift between who is being verified, who people think are, who's behind blue accounts and who in practice is behind blue accounts. Formerly, this was government officials, journalists, celebrities. Currently, on at least one platform, this is crypto accounts, Musk fans, and accounts with certain political skews. We note that there are other possibly knock-on effects for this work. We believe that there's possibly a viable consumer deception case here. There are violations we can cite, but I'll spare you those. Also, it seems very likely that there will be copycats. Other social media platforms are likely to follow in kind. In March of this year, Meta announced Meta Verified, which, if you pay $12 to $15 a month, you can be verified on either or Instagram or Facebook. Meta Verified, however, does actually provide some sort of, there is a certain ID requirement there, which sets it apart at least from the Blue program. Yep, and that concludes this talk. I'm happy to take questions now or during the lunch break.